Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It is Courtney here. I'm sure that you're a little bit surprised to see me back in the nursery, but it is true. I am home and I'm so thankful to be home. I really just kind of wanted to go over my experience in the hospital with you guys and tell you guys 7 things I learned from 7 days being in the hospital. I definitely needed to be in the hospital. I went to see my high-risk doctor in Florida. My blood pressure was elevated. I did have some increased swelling in my feet, my hands, my legs. When I got to the hospital there, when they were actually taking off my shoes, first of all, it was hard for them to get my shoes off my feet. And then when they actually took my socks off, I wear Old Navy branded socks, and you could actually see the Old Navy logo imprinted into my foot due to all of the swelling. In the 7 days that I was in the hospital, I actually lost 12 pounds of excess water weight and swelling, fluid, whatever. I definitely needed to be off of my feet, but I'm very glad to be home. They were comfortable enough with how Lyla was looking on the monitor. My blood pressures had looked good. My sugars had looked good. They felt comfortable sending me home on what's called modified bed rest. 90% of the time I am laying down or I'm sitting down. They are going to let me make my lunch, wash some dishes. I am allowed to drive myself to my doctor's appointments, and I'm also allowed to go to church and then just come home and sit. I'm taking those restrictions very seriously because I would like to stay home as long as possible, and I do not want to put myself or Lyla in a position like I was before, just doing too much and really overexerting myself. So I'm taking those very seriously. I'm monitoring my blood pressure at home. I'm doing the fetal kick counts, checking my blood sugar with my diabetes, and just really trying to drink a lot more water, elevate my feet, and really stay on top of the numbers. I will see my OB here in Alabama once a week for an ultrasound and an appointment, and also see my high-risk doctor in Florida in the same week for an ultrasound and a doctor's appointment. So Lyla will be getting 2 ultrasounds a week. We'll be seeing the doctor 2 times a week. We can kind of assess our birth plan and kind of where we stand. You guys are watching this on Saturday. I am now 33 weeks pregnant, and they told us that she could come anywhere from 34 to 37. So I'm very thankful to be home. That's kind of what's going on. But let's go ahead and get into the 7 things I learned in the 7 days that I was at the hospital. So the first thing I would say that I learned would definitely be that it is okay to be upset about your situation, but you cannot stay there. Obviously, we went in for 24 to 48 hour monitoring. The very next day I was told, no, you're probably going to be here until delivery. I would be okay when people were there visiting me. Like when Logan was at the hospital with me, I was fine. My parents did come for a weekend, and when they were there, I was fine. I would get really upset and really sad when they had to leave, and then I was in that room by myself. And I think it's important to allow yourself to break down and cry and get those feelings out, because if you let them bottle up, you're just constantly going to be pushing things down, and that's not good for your mental health. That's not good for your physical health. It's just not good in general. So allow yourself to be sad in the moment. Go ahead and cry it out. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to voice that, but you cannot stay there. At some point, you have to go from being really upset and really hurt and really disappointed to a place of it is what it is and I'm moving on. So thing number 1 would definitely be that it is okay to be upset and disappointed at your situation, but you cannot stay there long term. I would say the second thing that I learned would be to not take the people in your life for granted, and do not take your daily routine for granted. I never thought in a million years how much I would miss showering in my shower, wiping down the counters in my kitchen. Logan and I have been married for just over a year at this point. We've developed this little routine that we do at night. We have shows that we watch together, different things that I never thought that I would miss. I definitely missed. I missed the little jokes that Logan and I would have. I missed being able to drive to my parents' house and visit with them. I just missed people and being around everybody that I love. Of course, it was hard being at a hospital 2 hours away from home, but just don't take things like that for granted. I will never take for granted now just the little quirks that Logan and I have here at home and our inside jokes. Yeah, FaceTime is great, and I'm thankful for that technology, but it does not beat actually being there in the moment. So the second thing I definitely learned was do not take the people in your life or the little things that you do in your daily routine for granted. Thing number 3 that I learned would definitely be to use the silent times to think about the things that you're grateful for. I said that I would always really struggle whenever Logan would have to come back home and work, or whenever my parents had to come back and leave me there in the room. Whenever I would just have to sit there by myself, there were times where I would just sit there and all I could hear in the background was Lyla's heart rate. She was continuously being monitored. So there were a lot of times where I would just sit there in silence and think about where I was. But hearing that little girl's heartbeat in the background, that whole time that I was in there was about her. It wasn't about me. Just getting there and having that time to hear her heartbeat for so long, for so many days, was special to me. Hearing her move around in my belly and really getting to focus on feeling her move and remembering like her little kicks and just different things. And I really got to bond with her. Gosh, I'm gonna like get emotional, but I mean, in a sense, I did get to bond with her because there were times where it was just me and her in that room and it was quiet and the only sound that I had in there was her little heartbeat. And so I think that's really cool because at appointments, you know, they put the little Doppler on you for like 5 or 10 seconds and tell you it sounds good. I mean, and that's, you know, when you get to hear the heartbeat, but like getting to hear that all the time and just thinking about the miracle of her life and about why I was in that hospital to make sure that she was okay was definitely special to me. And so that is something that I would say is use the silent times to think about the things that you're grateful for, and that will help you. Thing number 4 that I learned would definitely be to make a countdown. My mom and my dad actually came up with this idea. In your room, you have like a little board that says your nurse's name, what the date is, just, you know, things like that, so you can kind of keep track. And there was a little section at the bottom of my board that was blank. And what they did is they actually wrote down the number of days until Lyla's due date. Every night before I could go to sleep, I would be able to scratch that off and know that I was one day closer to holding that baby girl. When you actually have a countdown that you can visualize and see and break it down. When I was admitted into the hospital, we still had like 5 weeks and 3 days until her due date. But actually seeing it written out as, okay, there were 3 rows of numbers, and it went from 32 to number 1. So if you broke it down and, okay, that first row is 10 days. I got to make it through those 10 days and that whole row is done. The second row is another 10 days. That's a whole nother thing done. And then by the time you get to that last week, you're so excited to get to the end of the countdown. It does kind of keep it, you know, tangible that you're about to get out of that situation. I have a countdown app on my phone. I count down to everything. Like, I'm already counting down to my birthday in October, like just everything. I love countdown stuff as it is, but definitely if you're in a situation that you don't want to be in, make a countdown until you're out of it, and it definitely does help keep things kind of more focused for you. Thing number 5 is a little bit shorter just because I've kind of talked about it throughout the whole video, but it's definitely to keep your situation in perspective. Yeah, was it hard to think about being in that hospital potentially for 5 weeks? Of course. However, through talking to the nurses and just getting to know everybody there, there was actually another woman on my wing. Obviously, they didn't tell me her name or anything. So, baby due in April, and she has been in that unit since October. And when you think about stuff like that, that is 6 months of her pregnancy that she is spending in a hospital. I cannot even imagine her mental state. Are people visiting her often? Is she in there all alone? And you know, I was only in there for 7 days and it was hard. I can't even imagine being in there for 6 months continuously and not getting to go home. So just always remember that even though what you're going through may seem like the hardest thing in the world, there's somebody else that has gone through that at some point, and there's also somebody that has it a lot worse than you. So just keep your situation in perspective and be thankful and see what lesson you can learn. But that would definitely be something else that I learned, is just to keep everything in perspective. Thing number 6 that I learned is say thank you more often. As somebody that works in healthcare, I've just always kind of found it rude when, you know, you finish something with a patient and you say, okay, we'll be right back, and they don't say thank you. So I've always kind of made it a point that whenever I'm at a doctor's appointment or something, to tell the nurse thank you, tell the doctor thank you. But there were so many times where those nurses would come in for my diabetes. They would come in there at 7 a.m. to prick my finger. Was that fun to do my fasting blood sugar that early? No, but I would tell them thank you. And so many times they would say, you're the only person that tells us thank you for this. Or, you're the first person today to say thank you. So, and it meant something to them. So I think even if it's not in a healthcare setting, just at a restaurant, say thank you to your server. If somebody holds the door open for you, say thank you. Kindness really does go a long way. Getting to know those nurses was probably one of my favorite things to do. Just asking them questions. How long have you been here? Do you like it here? Asking questions about my healthcare, helping them out, like getting the monitor put on, helping them find baby in my belly. Just different things like that really does make a difference. And then they would come in there and just talk to me and ask me how I was doing, and that meant the world. But if I had been rude and ugly to them, they probably wouldn't have wanted to come help me or be in my room. And so that's one thing I can say is just any kind of service that you get, say thank you. Those people were in there taking care of me through the night, through the day, monitoring my baby, making sure I was comfortable, always asking me if they could get me something. So I would just say, always say thank you. And always be appreciative of those people that are serving you. And I promise it does go a long way and make a difference. And finally, thing number 7, I think it goes without saying, is God is always in control. Modern medicine is great. Doctors are great. Like I said, I am thankful that I did go to the hospital. I needed to be there. I was in a scary situation, not only for myself, but for Lyla. Just a firm believer that God had his hand in that. If I hadn't have had an appointment that day, who knows what would have happened? Would I have gone into preterm labor? Would this have turned into eclampsia? Just so many different scenarios could have happened, and he placed me at my high-risk pregnancy doctor appointment on that day that I was probably at my highest risk for something going wrong. And yeah, did it catch us off guard? Of course. Did I need to be there? Yeah. But God orchestrated all of that, and I'm not somebody that really believes in fate or destiny or anything like that, but I personally just feel like that was God's plan. I needed to stop working. I needed to be off my feet. I needed to slow down, and I needed to learn how to do that to take care of my baby properly in this phase of my pregnancy. So I'm just so thankful that I was in that situation, and I'm thankful that God always has a plan and is looking out for my baby. I know that he's in control of her, and I know that he already knows her birthday, and I know that because I know those things, I don't need to necessarily worry about all of the small details. So those are the 7 things that I learned in my 7 days staying at the hospital. Like I said, I'm just so thankful to be home back with Logan. I'm able to do some things, but like I said, I am taking these restrictions very seriously. Happy 33 weeks to Lyla. I cannot believe we are finally towards the end of this pregnancy. I just cannot wait to hold my little girl and just watch her grow up and have her be part of our family. So I hope you guys will stick around. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. And thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.